In just a few days, Bond's Burgers will have its grand opening. Established by Bunny Smiles Incorporated, this high-tech burger joint aims to delight children everywhere with the Showstoppers, a unique cast of lovable, state-of-the-art performing animatronics. Bond the bunny, Shaw the sheep, Boozoo the human, Ban the other bunny, and Billy the clown. Clowns are a species, by the way. However, strange things started to happen. The restaurant's co-founder Jack Walten went missing. Locals reported hearing loud music playing in the dead of night. Staff members started to disappear. I'm going to tell you the story of broken people, beautiful people,
safety and pills.
In April of 2020, filmmaker Martin Walls released the Walten Files 1 Company Introduction Tape, a compilation of VHS tapes related to the tragic events surrounding the opening of Bond's Burgers and the now defunct Bunny Smiles Incorporated. The series begins with an instructional training tape for the restaurant's technical support staff, whose role is apparently to create a magical and fun experience at Bond's Burgers. We're treated to a musical number by the establishment's Animatronics. They sing happy children's songs, but they're terrifying. I mean, look at them. Would you let your kids go anywhere near those monstrosities?
Sun has got his hat on and he's coming out today.
While the animatronics are creepy as hell, there's nothing overtly suspicious about the tape. Some little glitches here and there, but nothing out of the ordinary for a scratched up old VHS. The narrator explains that we've been given the role as a facility caretaker with obligations involving cleaning, robot maintenance, and repair. We're introduced to Bunny Smiles founders Jack Walten and Felix Kranken before the tape awkwardly cuts to an information panel detailing storage plans for the now decommissioned Bond's Burgers restaurant. Well, that was fast. Something really bad must have happened if this ambitious, expensive establishment was closed for good mere weeks after its grand opening. The panel explains that the decommissioned animatronics are to be stored in the K9 facility, a secure location situated deep in the middle of a forest. Why would they need to ship all the robots to a secret bunker hidden in the middle of the woods? That sounds really expensive. Why not just throw them in a closet or something? It's quite suspicious. Despite the failure of Bond's Burgers, Bunny Smiles Incorporated continued to operate, and 5 years later in 1979, they released the children's cartoon Bond's Super Sleepover. In it, an adorable version of Bond the Bunny invites Shaw, Boozoo, and Billy for a sleepover. Little Bond begins to go over his guest list when suddenly Bunny Smiles co-founder Jack Walten's face appears, and he's a very, handsome man. Just like you're all very handsome viewers once you hit the subscribe button. That's weird. Why would one of the company's co-founders show up in the middle of a cartoon like this? Bond prepares a movie for the group to watch, but when we see the box, it also has Jack Walten's face on it. Which isn't that surprising. With looks like his, he's probably a movie star or something, so. When the gang goes to actually watch the film, its contents are nothing more than the words, "Let me out of here," on a black screen. Next to the television, we can see a prescription bottle marked Sophie Walten on it, another very strange inclusion for a children's cartoon. After watching the gripping and emotional film, the crew heads to sleep in another adorable shot. However, Bond is awoken in the middle of the night by the sound of static. He gets up to check it out, only to find that the television has been turned on. A missing person poster for Jack Walten is present, with the titular character having been last seen on June 11th, 1974, just a few days before Bond's Burgers was set to open. We hear some strange noises, almost like Jack is trying to speak, and Bond finds a lighter on the ground. He retrieves it and struggles to light it when suddenly, Bond seems to turn into one of the restaurant's security guards named Sophie. Behind her stands a monstrous, realistic version of Bond with a massive hole torn in his chest. It would seem that a few days before Bond's Burgers was set to open, co-founder Jack Walten disappeared. Furthermore, his daughter Sophie Walten was an employee at the restaurant and was prescribed some form of medication. Midnight, October 10th. We witness dashcam footage and hear the voice of Bunny Smiles Inc. facility caretaker Brian Stells as he attempts to locate the K9 storage facility. The same facility the animatronics were brought to after Bond's Burgers closed. So this is the new caretaker for the old Bunny Smiles facility. I'm recording this because the company requires some type of archives for the work history. Something like that. I honestly have no clue because I just started working here. I'm going there right now, but they gave me this weird location that's somewhere in this forest to work at, and I've been driving for 20 minutes and I can't find the place. After a bit more driving, Brian arrives at the destination, the K9 storage facility. Why the hell did they have to do this at night? Brian explains that the place hasn't been operational for years and that it would likely smell horrendous. Indeed, upon walking in, he almost chokes on the putrid air, but upon persisting, he finds what he's looking for. So I found this thing, and I think it might be good for the company's relocate project. It's seen better days, but the diagnostics control is right here, so we can see how Bond's doing. They test each limb, starting with the head and mouth before moving on to the arms. We cut to this strange shot of Bond's eyes slowly opening, indicating activation or rebirth. He's become alive again. The man flees from the bunker.
What was that thing?
We hear a loud chomp noise as the camera falls. We see Brian's mangled body shrouded in darkness. I can't feel anything. He thought I was her. Upon initially discovering Bond, Brian suggests the animatronic would be an ideal candidate for the relocate project. It seems that someone from Bunny Smiles Inc. wants to repair these animatronics and bring them back into service, which is strange because the earlier bulletin suggested that the animatronics were meant to be locked away for good. After being attacked by Bond, we can see that Brian's work uniform looks incredibly similar to that of Sophie Walten's. Considering Sophie is the only named female character so far, it stands to reason that he thought I was her refers to Bond mistaking Brian for Sophie. This whole situation is suspicious. Why would Bunny Smiles Inc. send Brian to K9 in the middle of the night? Why would they insist on him recording everything? Wouldn't he be able to just tell them after he came back? It almost looks like someone deliberately sent Brian there in the middle of the night, knowing it was dangerous and knowing that he would not come back. 2 months later, on June 28th of 2020, Martin would release the Walten Files 2 Relocate project. The uploader, Anthony, claimed that like the first episode, these were a compilation of tapes related to the relocation project that Bunny Smiles Inc. underwent in 1978. They go on to explain that the company completely vanished 5 years later in '83, so it seems that whatever this relocate project was, it didn't end very well. We're treated to another lovely animated internal corporate training video. After 4 years of legal battles, the company has decided to execute their relocate project plan.
Ladies and gentlemen, we now present to you the Relocate Project. But before we go into details, we want to greet all the new Bunny Smiles employees.
With the company greeting out of the way,
Let's start analyzing the Relocate Project by checking what has happened ever since the closure of Bonds 4 years ago. As many of you might have known from previous tapes, our beloved entertainers were safely secured in St. Juana's storage facility some months after the restaurant's closure.
Wait a minute, was that Jack Walten driving the moving van?
Later on, a good amount of business opportunities appeared, such as books, merch, animated movies. We even got a TV show. That's when Felix Kranken had the brilliant idea of restore and reprogram the robots of Bond's Burgers with the purpose of relocating them in a new restaurant that would be opened in a not-so-distant future. A pretty smart plan, right? Making enough money to eventually reopen the Bond's Burgers restaurant is no doubt a brilliant idea. So let's give it up for Felix Kranken, a man with not only a giant brain, but also a giant heart.
It seems that after Jack Walten's disappearance, Felix took over the company. Not only that, he seems to be trying to rewrite history, having cropped Jack Walten out of the photo and declining to mention him entirely. However, Jack works his way into the tape regardless. Immediately after this scene, we see a cartoon of Jack staring silently at the camera. It's difficult to make out, but on the file cabinet, the words "Jack's still here" are barely legible. Next, we're shown a tape detailing the process of upgrading the animatronics post-relocate project. In addition to their prior functionality, the animatronics have been given the ability to blink. Wait a minute, if the animatronics couldn't blink up until now, how did Bond do this? After the eye test, we see a human face overlaid atop Banny's head, suggesting that either a human body is physically stuffed into the animatronic or that a human's consciousness is present within. We then cut to a scene of Banny's futile attempts to escape a room. A voice begins to echo.
The rabbit keeps trying to find a way out, or at least catch the owner's attention. The mighty rabbit must get out. The mighty rabbit needs to 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 get out. The rabbit is starving. The rabbit is starving. The rabbit is starving. Is starving. Is starving. Is starving. Is starving. Is starving. Is.
Finally, we're treated to yet another missing person poster, this time for a Susan Woodings, who disappeared on June 30th, 1974, just days after Bond's Burgers opened. The video seems to imply that Susan was stuffed into the Banny suit, yet somehow lived on. Trapped in the confines of her animatronic prison, Susan starved, writhing in agony, struggling desperately in a futile attempt to escape. Going by this logic, it's pretty safe to assume that Jack Walton's consciousness has somehow worked its way into Bond, but we technically don't know that for certain. Next is the updated 1978 Bunny Smiles technical support video. We're treated to some cool shots of the characters, animatronic endoskeletons, and even an arcade machine called Bunny Farm. Apparently, the company developed a video game, so they must be doing okay. This tape is specifically designed around the Relocate project and the associated K9 facility. In the wake of their recent success, it seems that the company has thrown caution to the wind and is working diligently to reclaim and repurpose the old Bond's Burgers animatronics. Shaw the Sheep serves as our guide. Shaw goes over the required credentials and equipment. Your uniform, your ID card, a flashlight, food, that kind of stuff.
Check. You should turn on the light. Turn on the light. Turn on the light. Turn on.
Holy shit, Shaw, shut up. Sorry. The light turns on, and Shaw begins to give us a tour of the facility.
These are storage areas. The first door is used to save any kind of cleaning items and supplies. The second door is used to save any kind of prizes and merch. The third door is used to hide...
Wait, the third door is used to hide what? As the screen fades out, we see a shadowy silhouette standing in the middle of the room. Suddenly, Shaw starts speaking in reverse. Thankfully, I speak reverse, and I can translate.
Rosemary would go to the restaurant every night hoping that his beloved husband would reappear after being missing for weeks. But no response until one day she heard a voice saying, "I know where she is, Rosie," coming from the backstage.
Considering Jack Walton went missing shortly after the restaurant opened, it's safe to assume that Rosemary is his wife. Furthermore, it seems that someone or something lured her backstage.
Now let's move on to the next room.
Wait, let's not move on to the next room. This looks like a really important rope. Okay. Shaw returns to the prior room, but she seems confused. We've already been here. Things are different though. The Shaw poster is missing its eyes. The animated guide is crying, and the shadowy silhouette is blocking the doorway. As Shaw walks into the figure, the room distorts, and the poster's dead eyes cry a long stream of tears. Suddenly, she's back in the room. The poster now shows a human woman, Rosemary, Jack Walton's wife. Shaw seems confused.
Sophie, where am I?
Shaw begins to flicker, rapidly shifting between her sheep form and that of Rosemary. By the time the lady entered the backstage as the voice told her to, her missing husband wasn't there. Instead, she found a rabbit. Rosemary was distraught at her husband's sudden disappearance. She showed up at the restaurant night after night, hoping that he would return. One night, she hears a voice calling from backstage. "I know where he is, Rosie." She follows the sound through the corridors, only to encounter Bond backstage.
Rose broken will fix you. You will beautiful. You will beautiful. You will beautiful.
He dismembers Rosemary's body and stuffs the limbs into the Shaw animatronic, embedding her consciousness within the robot. All the while, the same shadowy figure watches from the doorway.
When she woke up, she looked beautiful, but on the inside...
It looked like every single part of her body was bleeding out.
A third missing persons poster emerges from the darkness. Rosemary Walton, last seen July 19th, 1974. 3 missing people, 3 animatronics. I think we can tell where this is going. The final section of the Relocate project is camcorder footage obtained by 3 Bunny Smiles Inc. technicians who volunteered to spend 3 days at the K9 facility reprogramming the animatronics. The 3 arrive at the bunker during the day, thank heavens, and as they work to reprogram the robots, they gossip about the strange happenings at Bond's Burgers. The trip is relatively uneventful, though they find that they're unable to salvage much given the brief time that they were allotted. Ashley, one of the techs, remarks that it's weird how corporate gave them a seemingly useless key without ever explaining what it was for. That night, after the others have gone to sleep, Ashley takes the key deeper into the facility and finds the door that it goes to. The back doors, a previously inaccessible section of K9. Ashley is shocked by just how much of the facility was hidden behind this locked door. She starts peeking into random rooms. She finds some horrific unused animatronics and notes that they could potentially be useful for the Relocate project.
26 or 27, I think. As you can see here, there was some spare head. Nothing I'm interested in, to be honest.
Her voice begins to quiver. Something is giving Ashley a really bad feeling, and she's starting to get scared. Eventually, she comes across Billy the Clown, a fully assembled animatronic that honestly seems like it's in pretty good shape. She finds a cassette tape dated June 11th, 1974, the same date Jack Walton went missing. It's simply labeled Discard. Ashley musters up the courage to approach Billy, who has a cassette player installed in his abdomen. She inserts the tape, and Billy activates as a happy birthday tune plays. It starts off somewhat normal before the tape skips and the following occurs.
Happy birthday, things are gonna be great, 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 great.
Jack, Susan, Charles, Rosemary, Sophie.
Ashley hears something approaching the room. She quickly shuts her flashlight and tries to steady her breathing. She hears the shuffling noise approach. She finally gets the courage to turn on her flashlight when... we hear Ashley's screams echo out as an animated representation of her becomes bruised, bloodied, and beaten. For a single frame, the following text flickers onto the screen. They left the next day. They thought Ashley left early, but she was in the back doors, screaming as much as she could, but no one heard the screams. The following days, the caretakers would complain about an awful smell coming from the back doors. The company decided to shut down the facility, and the relocate project was unsuccessful. Ashley is still there, but she's not screaming anymore. She saw something she wasn't supposed to see, and now she's beautiful. She's beautiful. You should know the drill by now. Another victim, another possessed animatronic. In this case, it looks like Bunny Smiles technician Ashley Park's consciousness ended up trapped within Billy the Clown, another of Bond's grisly victims. Hidden throughout the Walten Files 2 are fragments of a YouTube URL that leads to the first secret video, Lucky You. This upload shows a slideshow of Bond's Burgers opening, the first birthday party, and the last shows prior to closing. We're shown that the restaurant was open for less than a month. The following October, the place was boarded up and the animatronics were moved to the canine storage facility in the middle of the woods. June 11th, 1974, the day Jack Walton disappeared. You must be so confused about what you saw. I made them beautiful. I don't know how. I didn't even mean to, but I did. They try to talk to us. They will be heard. This is their cry for help. Besides, they want us to know what happened that year, but we must be patient. Look, they are filled with life. They dance to the music. They laugh and sing along. They're perfect. They're beautiful. They will see you soon, Sophie. At the very beginning of the series, during the sleepover cartoon, we saw a prescription bottle labeled Sophie Walton next to the TV. Furthermore, we see what appears to be Sophie right after Bond lights the lighter. It would appear that Sophie Walton was working at Bond's Burgers and saw something that she wasn't supposed to, and it seems she was prescribed some sort of medication in the wake of this incident. We would learn more about Sophie in the series' third and final installment, Bunny Farm. Bunny Farm is a really interesting video because all indications seem to suggest that Martin Walls actually made a playable game inside ClickTeam Fusion, the same software Scott Cawthon used to make Five Nights at Freddy's. A single frame of the video shows what appears to be Martin's desktop with ClickTeam in the background. This is really interesting. It's like analog horror machinima. My guess is that Martin was able to control these characters with his keyboard and sort of puppeteered them around while recording in order to get some of these shots. Anyway, in the early 80s, Bunny Smiles Inc. was doing well enough that a video game was produced. It was never finished or released to the public, but a few test machines were distributed in order to collect footage and presumably refine the game. One machine was sent to a hotel, the same hotel in which Sophie Walton was living at the time. Sophie and her girlfriend Jenny, it's canon, play the game together. It's a buggy early build, but they seem to be having fun.
Dumbass.
Sophie manages to play the game, which is frankly just a bunch of nonsense involving a farm. It wouldn't be that suspicious except for the fact that we know Sophie Walton worked at Bond's Burgers. Her father was the co-founder of Bunny Smiles Inc. She should know who these characters are. She should immediately recognize this game, but she doesn't. It's as if all memory of her past has been completely eliminated.
Thing is, the pills have been making me forget a lot of stuff from my teenage years and my childhood, and...
Ah, well, that explains it. Something happened to Sophie the night her father, Jack Walton, disappeared. And since then, she's been taking prescription drugs that have caused her to completely suppress those memories. This explains why Sophie doesn't recognize a video game based on a franchise she used to work at, a franchise her father created. Jenny leaves to go write a paper, and Sophie continues playing the game herself. Unfortunately, things quickly go awry. The glitches begin to get worse, and Sophie does notice them, but she presses onward. Finally, things come to a climax when this happens.
Christ. Never mind.
We see the faces of the victims embedded into the arcade game. Sophie tries to continue playing, but the game crashes right as she walks into a gray bunny rabbit. Confused, frustrated, and a little creeped out, Sophie decides to call it quits for the night. The next day, Sophie returns to play again, but when she launches the game, a warning pops up indicating that her save file has been corrupted or manipulated by a third party. Bullshit, no 1980s arcade game would use save files. Sophie ignores this and plays the game regardless. She checks one of the signs, and for a frame, we can see the following text. He promised to take care of the 2 kids that day. He told the parents everything was okay. It's sad that we can't really remember you, Sophie, but soon we'll be together, forever and ever. Rest in peace, the 2 lovely red children. Whoever this epitaph is for, both died on May 2nd, 1974, shortly before Bond's Burgers opened. They were 9 and 12 years old respectively. They were just children. Sophie doesn't notice the message, but as she continues to play, she gets the feeling that the game is trying to talk to her, like it's trying to tell her something. Suddenly, in the midst of her session, an audio log by technician Susan Woodings plays. As a reminder, Susan was the first victim of Bond, having been stuffed into Banny and starving within the confines of the circuits in metal. She expresses some concern regarding the events surrounding Bond's Burgers opening. Suddenly, Sophie is controlling an avatar of Susan Woodings within the Bunny Farm arcade game. The game's no longer set at the farm, it's taking place at Bond's Burgers. Sophie moves the Susan character throughout the backstage room and begins performing maintenance on Bond when... Well, I guess we know how Susan ended up in Banny. I am still alive, but I can't move. I'm having trouble breathing, and my stomach feels weird. Sophie must have nerves of steel, because even after that, she continues to play. She finds a series of notes that appear to have been written by Bunny Smile's co-founder Felix Kranken's wife. Apparently, Felix suffered from a drinking problem for a long time, and it eventually led to the collapse of his marriage. Sophie encounters glitches related to Charles, the final victim, who seems to be associated with Buzu the Ringmaster. We haven't really encountered either of these characters much yet, though. Next, Sophie encounters Shaw the Sheep, who is possessed by her mother, Rosemary Walten. In what is perhaps the most chilling moment in all of the Walten Files so far, Shaw's withered form appears. She takes on the face of Sophie's mother and addresses her directly.
Am I still beautiful to you, Sophie?
I know you.
Found you.
We see the same "I know where he is, Rosie, follow me" line again, the night Rosemary went missing. Could this be what Sophie saw? Did she see an animatronic bunny possessed by her father dismember her mother, then stuff the body in a sheep robot, which Rosemary then went on to possess whilst writhing in eternal agony? Whoa, that's pretty fucked up. Next, we see a gray bear emerging from a well. It looks similar to the bear that caused the game to crash the night prior. Come one, come all, welcome to my magic fountain of memories. Sophie asks, who are you? They respond by drawing a picture of 2 stick figures. It almost looks like 2 children? The game glitches again and cuts to a photo of a house dated May 2nd, 1974. On the front steps, we see 2 red children, just like the ones mentioned in the epitaph from earlier. This isn't just any house though. Sophie recognizes it.
Holy shit. That's my old house?
Rocket the Rabbit appears, by the way that's the Grey Bunny's name, Rocket, and asks for Bond's help clearing the corn maze. However, he's cut off mid-sentence by a phone ringing. A recording of a phone call between Bond's Burgers founders Jack Walten and Felix Kranken plays. It's the night of the school dance, and Sophie's younger siblings Ed and Molly Walten want to attend. Unfortunately, their father Jack is unable to take them. He's too busy with work related to the upcoming Bond's Burgers opening. He calls his best friend and business partner Felix and asks if they could take Ed and Molly to the dance in his absence. Felix agrees, delighting Jack.
Thanks for bothering your lifesaver, Felix. It's nothing.
Little did Jack know, Felix would not be a lifesaver that night. We then witness the events of that evening. Ed and Molly prepare for the dance, with Molly desperately searching for her Rocket Rabbit doll. Sophie recognizes them too as she plays the arcade. It's her little brother and sister.
That's Ed and Molly.
The game glitches again, and suddenly Sophie is controlling Ed and Molly as they attend their school dance. When it's time to leave, they can't find Felix. They enter the drinking zone where parents and chaperones are able to sit at a bar and pass the time. I've heard some people express skepticism that there would be a bar at a school function, but this was the 70s, guys. It's absolutely conceivable that a bar would be set up for the parents during a school event like this. Despite their young age, Ed and Molly seem concerned that Felix was at the bar. They know that he shouldn't be drinking. It's okay, I'm just feeling a little dizzy. It's getting very late. Your parents must be worried. Let's go home. 9:53 p.m. Felix is driving home. Something seems to be agitating him. Perhaps the domestic troubles we know he's been experiencing. Ed and Molly continue to be apprehensive towards Felix, though they reassure him that everything will be alright.
Everything is gonna be okay.
Moments later, Felix flips the car. The arcade cuts to a game over screen that reads, "Oh no, you got the bad ending. You couldn't finish the barn tasks in time," before glitching out to read, "You crashed the car. You killed them." Felix awakens in the car, having miraculously avoided severe injury. He goes to check on Ed and Molly, only to find that both children sadly perished in the crash. Distraught and panicking, Felix carries their bodies to the nearby San Juanita woods and buries them there. He leaves their Rocket Rabbit toy atop the graves, which is a profoundly stupid idea because it makes it a lot more likely that someone will find the graves, but whatever. In the arcade game, a depiction of Rocket appears and begins to speak with Sophie. They didn't go home
that night. He buried them here. He was too scared, but they found a way out eventually.
We see the red souls of the two children emerge from the graves and embed themselves into the Rocket plushie. We cut back to Felix, who has just arrived home. He checks his answering machine, only to find that he has 20 missed calls. Someone has been calling him constantly. Sure enough, it's his best friend Jack, wanting to know where the hell his children are.
Felix, pick up the phone. It's been 3 hours since I told you to get Ed and Molly home. What happened to my children? If anything happened, Felix, you must tell me.
The game glitches out into a shot of Bond convulsing as a girl's distorted face flashes on screen. While Bunny Farm is officially the final episode of the Walten Files, a final unlisted hidden video was released alongside it. Guilty. The description of the video appears to be the obituary of Ed and Molly Walten, but I don't really understand that. Didn't Felix bury their bodies in the forest? How did anyone find them and know they were dead? Who wrote this obituary? Also, what did Felix think would happen? He'd just go back home expecting that no one in their community would ask any questions about where the two children last seen with him went? This is sort of implausible. While the rest of the Walten family would go on to be silenced in one way or another, this obituary makes it clear that people knew what happened that night and how the children died. So why did no one question the fact that Felix buried these children in the woods? Don't get me wrong, I love this plot point. I just wish Martin hadn't included evidence that Ed and Molly's fates became public knowledge. It would make way more sense for them to have just gone missing like the rest of the family did. It's not a huge deal, but still. Guilty opens with generic audio recordings of Felix before cutting to one taken the night of the car accident. Felix is devastated. He acknowledges that he messed up badly, that he has a problem with alcohol, and that it's been a problem for as long as he can remember. As I said from the start, the Walten Files is the tale of people. It's not about some megalomaniac mad scientist serial killer who's stuffing children into robots for the purpose of building himself the ultimate body. It isn't about some purple man's grand scheme to take over the world or anything like that. It's about people and their horrific struggles amidst this horrifying supernatural scenario. We get to know these characters a little bit before they get stuffed, and that makes their subsequent appearances as animatronics all the more scary and impactful. The moment Shaw appears to Sophie on the arcade machine and asks, "Am I still beautiful to you, Sophie?" it's made way scarier when you consider the fact that that's her mother's voice, her mother's face saying that to her through an arcade machine. If that was just a generic animatronic, if that was just Toy Freddy saying that to a player character we know nothing about, it just wouldn't have the same impact. The Walten Files is one of my favorite YouTube series ever, and it actually means a lot to me. I have a lot of thoughts when it comes to analyzing or interpreting or solving the series, but I'm a little apprehensive to do so. The Walten Files community is very passionate, and they can be sort of intimidating, and because I relate so personally to the story, I worry that others might reject my interpretation or feel like I'm trying to suggest that it's canon or correct or something like that. Anyway, thanks so much for watching. Make sure to check out the Walten Files. I love content like this, and it's important that we support creators like Martin Walls who produce it.
Don't be scared, my little bunny. This is only the beginning. Safety and pills. Beautiful people. Beautiful people.